If there were a place in the world where you could store and protect the truth, it might be deep in the Rockies, in a field, on a ranch, in a silo, where an American patriot tells you what keeps him awake at night. Now, here is Medal of Honor recipient Drew Dix and words from the Silo.
Welcome, folks, to episode 11 of Words from the Silo. You know, we got a great program here today, and we're honored to have retired Major General Joe Arbuckle, and we'll go into that a little bit later, but he lives in Colorado Springs and doing some great work with STARS. We're very proud of that organization. But before we get into that, I want to talk about a little bit what we got from one of our last programs. And you know, we haven't done a program on this, but we did one on readiness, and I've got some calls about, and we're going to do a program, the very next one, on Department of Defense contracting, which is in some of the stories coming out of there that were probably DOJ initiated, that you don't even want to believe the cost of some of these programs that the Department of Defense is paying for. And just to, one of the things, I got to verify this, but it came from Bing West, former Assistant Secretary of the Department of Defense, that the average cost of an employee replacing a military guy on some of the support is $400,000 a head.
Why is that?
If somebody's making a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee you those employees aren't all making that. But anyway, we're going to get into it on the next episode. And if you have any input on that, give us a call before, and we can get your information out there. But this is serious stuff, because this is just about as bad as incompetence and poor equipment, as we can't afford to buy the good stuff because we're wasting it on manpower. And the other thing is we just finished Memorial Day. And I got a lot of calls from people all across the country. But what bothers me a little bit, and I'm just going to get it right off my chest, is they all thank me for my service. And this, friends, is not about my service or any veteran that is living and survived the battle. It is for those that gave their lives since Civil War, originally called Decoration Day. And it's been that way ever since. But when they changed it to a 3-day weekend, we started losing it, because I heard that the reason why we did was to give employees a 3-day weekend, government employees, and also to help the economy by traveling, or, you know, more travel to visit. So this is all a part of doing away with tradition, and I hate this term woke, but it's all a part of that. It's a culture that we've changed where we make everybody comfortable for the wrong reason. So get it off my chest, I'm going to sleep good on this one, is Memorial Day is to remember those that gave their lives on the battlefield that didn't make it home. So I got that. So back to our program today, and it is all about digging DEI out of the trenches. You know, we've all heard the great mandates, edicts that Secretary of Defense and President are putting out about eliminating DEI. Great, I couldn't ask for more. But we all know, this has been coming along for a long time, that digging it out of the trenches is the big problem. And that's why I feel good about a relationship with STARS, and we'll go into I'll let our guests explain that a little bit, because they're digging it out of the trenches. They're in trench warfare, just like World War I, digging this stuff out of there, getting it away from the affecting the warrior ethos is what we need to win our wars and to keep us out of one, to be exact. But anyway, our guest today is retired Major General Joe Arbuckle. Lives right up the road in Colorado Springs here. Been in the Army, I guess it was about 32 years, served, and was commissioned an OCS, combat engineer, I believe it was, but went to Vietnam in 1972. And for those of you, and I was over there in 72, I was coming back, and the war for the American involvement was winding down. But on the backside of that meant it ramped up for the South Vietnamese. And then Lieutenant Arbuckle was an advisor to a Vietnamese unit, and they got into some heavy stuff, and he's been decorated for combat in Vietnam. So, Joe, we're General, we're
Yes, sir.
happy to have you here.
Well, thanks, Drew. It's a real honor and pleasure for me to be here and participate with you and Brad. It's a great series of podcasts that you're doing. You're talking about things that need to be said for sure. And I want to jump on what you said about Memorial Day, because that's so important. I think the vast majority of the people in the United States have really forgotten what that's all about. And as you pointed out, when it went to a 3-day weekend, I think a lot of that was economic, because it offered some businesses a chance to say, let's have some Memorial Day sales, have the barbecues and all that. And that's fine. I mean, that's okay, as long as people would take time out to honor what it's all about and go to some Memorial Day service that's in their location. So thanks for saying that.
Well, it needs to be said, and even some of those in the military now think it's to celebrate their grandpa that served in World War II but just died or something.
Right.
Well, that's Veterans Day. That's what that's for. We get a day. Mm-hmm. But anyway,
what did you guys do on Memorial Day, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, we have a house guest from out of town, and what we did, because there's not really anything locally there where we could go to and really participate, we watched the entire Arlington ceremony on TV with President Trump, Secretary of Defense, and Vice President Vance, and I'll tell you, that's the best one I've ever watched.
Okay.
Those guys did an absolutely super job at laying of the wreath, and then the speeches were superb, right on the money. So they got my blood flowing in the right direction. That's what we did.
Well, that's good. And Brad, I was right here at the center, came by, we had an open house. And also on the way here, I stopped at Silver Cliff, a little town just east of where I live, and they had a big turnout. It was well done. There must have been a couple hundred people there. That's a lot for a little town like that. And they said it. They get it. There's a lot of veterans in that community, and they get the idea that it's for those that died on the battlefield. So, and I was invited to go to D.C. and be in that parade, but I just, I've been there. Mm-hmm. I like to do stuff locally, and that's personally my opinion.
Yeah. Good. I agree. A little quick story on that, if you don't mind. When Jane and I first moved up to West Cliff area after I retired from the Army, they asked me to speak at the Memorial Day parade, which they had on a Saturday. And I said, okay, sure, I'll do that. And they had the traditional parade with fire engines and some high school bands, a bunch of floats. Everybody's just having a great time. And so here I am on a rack wagon right along the parade route trying to give a speech about Memorial Day. And a few people paid attention, but most of them were just having a good time. And I went home and said, that's wrong. We can't continue to do this, so I'm going to fix it, or try to. So I then got with the Chamber of Commerce up there and said, look, this is rather disrespectful what you're doing, calling this Memorial Day parade and having a big celebration, not really paying a whole lot of attention to what it's about. So here's what I'm going to do. You guys change the name of your parade to Spring to Summer because you want to open up the tourist business up here, and that's fine. But change it to Spring to Summer Parade. In return, I'll work with the Legion. We'll set up a traditional Memorial Day ceremony at Westcliff, right there, what you're talking about.
Well, you
And it's
did a
been
good
going on
job
ever
because
since.
they're
Well,
still carrying the tradition.
They have been carried ever since. They did a great job. Yeah. You mentioned stars. Do you want to hear something about that?
I'd like to hear it. I know a little bit about it, but I'd like to hear our guests hear it right from the horse's mouth about what you're doing and how important it is.
Oh, thank you. Well, thanks for being on the board of advisors also, Drew, to STARS. You're a valuable contributor there. So STARS was born about 5 years ago when some of the Air Force Academy graduates that are now on the board of STARS saw a video of the football coaches at the Air Force Academy talking to their players and chanting and showing a video of Black Lives Matter. They kept doing it and kept doing it. Well, General Rod Bishop retired. Ron Scott's the president and CEO, got upset as Academy graduates, and they started to try to do something about it with the superintendent, the guy in charge of the Academy. Said, just take that down. That's not appropriate. It took about 7 or 9 months or something like that to finally have that happen. And that's when STARS was born, because they decided, that's just on the surface. There's bigger problems out here if that's happening. And we need some organization of retired senior military to get together and push back against what has become, from CRT, critical race theory, now to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so STARS has grown since. We're largely volunteer, senior military run. We do have a few paid people for, like the budget and so forth. But we dedicate our time and talents on two different things that you're familiar with, Drew. One is getting rid of DEI in the military. That's one of our objectives. We're still working that. We talk about it. The other was getting rid of the mandatory COVID vaccination policy, which basically it is illegal, and it was oppressive to our service members. It caused a lot of harm, and so we worked hard with members of Congress and their staffs to educate them about that. And I think we played a key role in getting Congress to step in and tell Secretary Austin at that time to stop this mandate, which did happen. But the battle's not over on that one either, because a lot of gals have been harmed by that vaccination, and remedies are necessary. And again, we can talk more about that. But that's how STARS was born. We work, we're a 501c3, a nonprofit, and so we don't get involved in supporting politicians or political parties, but we do support political policies. And we talk to Congress, like I mentioned. We also do a lot of public education with briefings and that sort of thing. And finally, we take legal actions. We have an excellent general counsel, and we do Freedom of Information Act requests to find out really what's going on inside of organizations.
Well, that Freedom of Information Act, everybody's heard of the FOIA requests, which I don't know if it's as easy to do as it sounds like or was intended when they came up with that. But I understand there's a few pending, and I don't know why it takes so long to go through that process. But that's how you find out what they're doing in the trenches. I've heard, I'm very interested in some of the studies that came out of Ranger School and where I think they've played with the numbers a little bit to get some more female graduates. And I know it to be true as far as because the people have told me about it. I believe in them. They witnessed it. But then you have to see it in writing to really give it credibility, or someone in this day and age could just say you're lying.
Yep.
It's kind of easy to use that term lie. The integrity of everything years ago was you call somebody a liar, you might as well pull the dueling pistols out, because that was bad news. Now people just kind of accept it, Brad.
Yeah. I don't know. Tolerance.
And it's a character flaw.
Yeah.
You heard that before?
I've heard that many times in recent weeks. Many times.
Okay.
How does someone get involved in STARS?
Well, we're always looking for volunteers, and we have a program going where we can have people sign up to be state leaders to help spread the word about what's going on in the military, support the STARS mission. And we have volunteers within those states. And we have state leaders, I think, in about 29 states right now. Okay. And something like 120, 130 of volunteers that work with them. We call them ambassadors. And so we provide them with briefings to provide them some background knowledge on what DEI is doing to our military and readiness. And they get involved with their local organizations, churches, and whatnot. So we kind of spread the word that way. We do have a great website, and I highly encourage people to get on there and take a look at it because it's filled with pertinent information about DEI and what's going on in the military. It's a capital STARRS.US.
And that's an acronym. Before we get into your slides that you brought along, tell us what the acronym stands for.
Stand Together Against Racism and Radicalism in the Services. Now that kind of sounds like an oxymoron, but what we're really talking about here is reverse racism. And we're talking about extremists that are on the left side, not on the right side. So that's the genesis of that.
When I first saw it, I said, wait a minute, they may not be, we're all against racism, but it also might mean something else to another group of people. But yeah, I agree. The military should be apolitical, and the old saying, we all are green or we bleed red, it's the same. And that's where you're coming from, and we need some work needs to be done, because I think we were maybe 15 years ago, we were coming out of this hole that we dug ourselves in racism from the old school racism. We've done pretty good in the military, and then I think we slid back a little bit, and that's what we got to get fixed.
What do your critics say about reverse racism when you use that term?
We don't hear a lot of criticism, at least I don't, on that, because we explain what we're talking about, and then they understand.
Yeah.
And we can address that here shortly. But yeah, I agree with you 100% in what you just said, Drew. That really started in 2008 when somebody got elected.
I don't. Yeah, we're apolitical, but let's face it, when things change, there's a reason. And they changed fast, which you question whether, well, why did it change so fast? Well, I think I've got a theory on this, is I think our culture was beginning to set up that we were ripe for this kind of influence, if that's the right word. But we're getting, I hate the term woke. I think it came out about 2008. I don't like the term woke, but it's an oversimplification of a complicated problem. Mm-hmm. Eliminate the past, we be woke, and I just don't go along with that. I think a lot of people agree with us on that, but they're using the term because it's simple. It lets everybody know we don't care how we got to where we're going. We're going to go new from now on. Well, everything shiny new doesn't always work.
That's right. Right. I agree about woke. Really, the truth is it's asleep. People that adopt that ideology are asleep about what's really going on around them.
They don't know what it means.
No.
Or don't even care. Maybe that's the danger of it. But what are some of the specific initiatives that STARS is working on to try to verify that the mandates that are coming from the new administration are being followed? Mm-hmm. I mean,
we have a pretty good network. It's informal with contacts at, for example, cadets at the academies, also a little bit within the active services, and there's a huge network of people similar to us that are all volunteers primarily, and veterans that have their own networks through social media. And so we get a lot of feedback through social media about what's going on out there. Now, what we're doing about it right now, we're attempting to get some kind of an official position with this task force, Restoring America's Fighting Force task force that Secretary Hegseth has stood up. So we can kind of be a sentinel to help them provide information directly back up so that the Department of Defense can respond appropriately. We're also working a lot of cases. Mike Rose, our great general counsel, he's got about 130 individual cases he's working now with some volunteer lawyers of people that have been harmed by the DEI policy and the way they were treated through disciplinary action and so forth, and also people that were harmed by the mandatory vaccination for refusing it. So we're working the legal path also.
Well, I know a lot of the people were harmed because they just were forced out of the military. just because they wouldn't embrace a DEI program. Well, Matt Lohmeyer, one of our friends, that is going through the process to be Assistant Secretary, Air Force, one of the levels there.
He's under number 2 guy in the Air Force.
Number 2 guy, yeah. And wish him luck on that. But the thing that bothers me, well, first of all, by bringing some of those back in, that rights that wrong to some degree, because we're getting a trained individual that left for the right reason, probably.
Yes.
And they're coming back. So good work on that. So what else you think we got to focus on?
Well, the remedies, I think, are a big deal you just talked about. And then watching what happens within the Department of Defense in reaction to these really, really good executive orders, and there's 4 of them that President Trump has issued that affect the DOD, and also watching what happens in response to the Secretary of Defense's memos that implement those. In other words, those are orders that have been issued to the Department of Defense that you will get rid of DEI and replace it with equal opportunity for all and meritocracy. And that's what our military has always had until recently, as you know. Everybody's treated equal no matter their skin color. Everybody has equal opportunity to be the best they can be, from an old Army slogan. And meritocracy drives all personnel decisions. In other words, the best people are selected to be leaders, to be pilots, to whatever position it is. It's all based on merit, past performance. But DEI came in and said, no, we're gonna have other criteria here. We're gonna look at people's skin color, their sex, their sexual orientation, and we're gonna factor that into some of these key personnel decisions. And so that is a major change that we're watching also right now.
And STARS and other organizations and the administration at the higher level needs to follow, not just put out an order and executive order or whatever to change something and eliminate a program, but stay on it. I don't know. I hate committees and all that, but they gotta get some individuals that have an opportunity to go right to the top of the chain of command to report incidences that the DEI is not being eliminated. Because, it's like on that one program we did where we talk about these individuals that were brought into the military under a DEI program. They haven't changed necessarily. If that's all they know, that's all they know.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of times we double down on things just like some politicians do. When it's failing, they don't say, that's wrong, we need to change. No, they'll double down. And that's the danger in the military because, I just think DEI did more harm to us than all of the incompetence and negligence that you can dig out of the trenches. The DEI was focused because people thought, the young individuals thought that was right.
Correct.
Yes, sir, we'll do it.
Sure. What's wrong with diversity, equity, and inclusion? They sound good. The words
Sounds
sound
good, yeah.
But they hide a very toxic cancer.
That's right.
That's
exactly
really
right. It sounds good. Who can argue with that? You know.
I'll talk a little bit about that if you want, about the Marxist Roots. But before then, you've got a slide up there for me?
It's right behind you. Is that the one you want?
Yeah, a little better answer to what you asked there. So here's what's going on within the Department of Defense right now. It's on that slide. I mentioned the presidential executive orders. Here are some of the points under those. We're going to get rid of racist and gender identity preferences like he, she, I, whoever you want to be. Use equal opportunity, meritocracy for everything. That's great. He close all DEI offices, get rid of their staffs, shut them down, in other words. That was on day one of his administration. That's what he said, do it.
Are they gone, though?
Well, that's the question.
Okay.
The offices are easy to take those down and move people around. But what happens in some cases that we found, they pop up with a different name, doing sort of the same thing that they were all along. And in these orders, President Trump warned against doing that because he anticipated that sort of a sabotage would happen. So that's part of the eyes and ears network that's got to be out there.
Good.
And here's one. Review all the leadership curriculum, instructors and stuff at the academies, senior service colleges, NCO schools, Department of Defense schools, ROTC, to make sure that this DEI stuff and CRT is eliminated. Now, so that came out. And the next 2 days later, Secretary Hegseth came out with a memo, and he said, okay, this is the Restore America's Fighting Force orders from the president. I'm going to stand up a task force to make sure that happens. He did. But unfortunately, he doesn't have his team on board yet, his permanent team. So he sent people out to look at 6 different installations to take a look at what's going on regarding implementing these orders. And they issued a report in March, and the final report's due in just 5 days. Well, that's not adequate. You can't send people out just for a few months in select locations and make a determination. However, unfortunately, the DOD stuff is already saying that the task force mission is complete, and they're saying that DEI's or eliminated 99.9%.
I heard that.
Yeah, that's what unfortunately Pete told the president in the cabinet meeting. Now I think he's talking about the offices, and that could be very true. Yeah. But when you dig deeper and find out really what's going on, no, it's not going on.
I agree that, and we talked about that specifically, that 99.9% of the programs have been eliminated. Mm-hmm. That's basically 100%. But for example, a civilian hired to run a program, where did they go? They fire them? I don't know. I mean, so
that's right. So this is a slide. The last 2 actually stars is put together, and this is one we're using internally there. It might be of interest. And the slide says, there might be 3 likely reactions to the military members when they get these orders. One is maybe 30% would say, great, I'm glad to get this DEI load off my back so we can go on and do warfighting readiness training. Hooah. Then there's going to be about half of them, I'm guessing. And by the way, these are my personal guesses. We can argue about the percents, but I think they're about
common
right.
sense is where we go here. So I think you're right on.
Yeah, about half of them say, yeah, okay, this is good. Let's get on with it. Then you're going to have that 20% that's going to drag their feet, resist, and sabotage. And that's the problem. Those are the people that have to be rooted out of the trenches.
I agree.
So how do you root them out?
You find them. You have to find them. Accountability is one of Pete Hegseth's 4 or 5 major themes, along with warfighting readiness, lethality, and meritocracy. Accountability. When you find people that are doing wrong, you take the appropriate disciplinary action against them.
How many of the 50% you say here in the middle bullet do you think maybe are DEI but are trying to save their job and they're going to try and wait out the administration by just laying low and be rooted in there, not get fired or not surface up and being defiant? Because you got this 20% that's going to be like, I'm not doing that, and they're going to be defiant. They'll be easier to find. But that in that 50 and that 30%, maybe you've got some numbers where they're going to lay back and try and wait up. So there's got to be a speed thing here. If this administration is the one that's pushing this, depending on how the politics fall, it doesn't matter. But that are waiting out this storm, if you will, from their perspective.
Well, I think that group you described, they're just going to wait it out, will be in the 50%. They'll just go along to get along and see what happens next. Right. And that's always there, primarily not with the active duty military, I don't think so much, but with part of the civilian workforce. But
will they actually have to buy people out of it? If they found somebody, would they have to buy them out of their contract? Can they fire them?
Oh, civilian contractors?
I'm just saying, even like military, do they have to give them early retirement? How do you root somebody out if you really want them gone? And without terminating or whatever you're trying to do with the workers.
Well, that gets to be difficult.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing.
There has to be a disciplinary, a violation of some kind of a law or a uniform code of military justice, in case of the military, and then you can take disciplinary action. You just can't say, well, I don't like your attitude or whatever, you got to go.
So it's a demotion.
That's a shame. But anyway.
It is a shame.
But so which brings up a point. A lot of the current administration's, not DEI related, but executive orders like the immigrations are being challenged in court. Have we seen where DEI eliminating that is being challenged?
Not in the
haven't heard.
military, Drew. I haven't seen that. But
hadn't either.
what we have seen is what we're calling some malicious sabotage. That's in that 20% category. That people have taken actions to try to embarrass the leadership due to their enforcing DEI. Example, Tuskegee Airmen video was taken down after this this order came out because they're black and we're not supposed to focus on any kind of a race. Well, that was just trying to embarrass somebody. That's not the intent at all, obviously. So that was put back up when that happened. And then the WASP, the female pilots during World War II, same thing happened with them because they're female. They were taken down from a video or on a billboard or whatever just to get back at the leadership. I think in many cases, and that's malicious compliance.
That was clear, because history, we don't eliminate history. And the Tuskegee Airmen, the WASPs, they participated in a time when we needed them.
Yep.
And in the females especially, we didn't draft females. They weren't in combat, but we needed them so more men would be available for flying airplanes in combat. Mm-hmm. So they raised their hand and flew those bombers. Most of them were flying Lend-Lease bombers to Russia, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very heroic.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm. A lot of people, if I can comment on this, don't understand the Marxist roots in DEI. So we know when Marx in 1848 came out with the Communist Manifesto, it was all about revolution, and it was all about pitting one group against the other, oppressors versus oppressed. Back then, he did it based on economic conditions. Okay. Fast forward to 1932, thereabouts, a bunch of Marxists from Germany got out of the country because of Hitler and came to the United States, and they went to Columbia University in the Teachers College and set up shop there. And their intent was to indoctrinate teachers to be Marxists and let that spread. Well, that's happened since 1932. Now, in the 1960s, which you were talking a little bit ago about the Cultural Revolution, all that's been brewing up until the 60s. And then there's a guy named Marcuse. He was one of those original Marxists. He came up with critical race theory, which is based on Marxism, and DEI is a spin-off of that. Now, how does that affect us today? Well, Marcuse figured out you can't pit people against each other in America economically, so I'd pick race. Critical race theory. We're going to put the whites against the blacks and vice versa. And that's what he did. And so all of a sudden the whites are seen, we still see that today as the oppressors, oppressing the blacks. Now where does that take you? Well, that takes you to a victimhood mentality. Because I'm a victim, I'm being oppressed, I'm entitled to special privileges. And within the military, those special privileges have amounted to lower standards for admissions of people of color in their skin, blacks, and females into places like the academies. When you get into senior promotion boards, there's goals there that are set for minorities, and this is the oppressed versus oppressor stuff, and that's pure Marxism. When you peel the onion back, that's where it's coming from. You pit people against each other. Now, what does that do to military readiness? Well, it's contrary to the warrior ethos, obviously, because this DEI is based upon division, dividing people, and we're all about uniting in the military. It's all about teamwork. And so it tears at the heart and soul of our military, DEI does, because of this divisive way we look at each other instead of, hey, we all have the same uniforms, same color blood. There's no difference in us at all. We shouldn't be looking at each other based on your skin color or your sex or anything else. But that's DEI, that's the Marxist base of it, and that's why it's got to come out of our military.
Well, and, we're still vulnerable to that because we've got a mentality of making somebody a victim. Even if you don't think you're falling into that. We've got people now talking about the military families on food stamps. Well, no one wants to see anybody go hungry, but I'm not too sure that that's accurate as far as they're getting paid, but are they spending the money on the right things? And so it's easy for a politician to make that point. We're going to pay them more money, to correct the problem. Some just don't get it. I mean, it's leadership. That's back when the company commander or the first sergeant could counsel somebody to take care of their family and don't waste the money on booze at night or something when you're off duty. You go home, take care of your family. You're not a private forever anyway.
That's right.
You do go up in the rank.
Right.
So I know I'm misunderstood a lot when I say things like that, but I think we can't be throwing more money to correct these problems. We just can't do it.
Yeah, one thing I thought came to mind when you're talking about that, leaders need to be not tough, but high demanding on their personnel with high standards. And as you know, when you have high standards, the troops respond to that because they take pride in being a little bit better than the unit next door. And they'll rally around that. I know that for certain, and you know that for certain.
Well, it's bragging rights.
Well, sure.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how many guys that hated combat football that the gunfighter did, but they brag about it and talk about it now, So.
But on the other hand, you don't baby troops. You got to treat them as adults.
You got to.
No matter what their age is. Yeah. Because they're
do
carrying a heavy responsibility. You got an 18, 19-year-old out there with a lethal weapon having to make tough decisions. You got to treat them like they operate.
My thought is it's got to be an easy decision. If the enemy's coming after you, pull that trigger easy. Don't hesitate, right? We've made people hesitate because they could do the wrong thing, and they don't do the wrong thing on the battlefield. It's very rare. It's rare. I've been there. You've been there. I don't think we've seen overwhelming examples of people misusing their power they have.
Never.
Over life, but because it's the young. We owe it to those young military to teach them how to survive, train them so they learn how to fight like they're training, because they are gonna fight how they're trained, and you can't be easy.
No.
Can't make
And we have the smallest military today that we've had since before World War II. I'm talking about the late 1930s, the smallest.
Yeah.
And this is the most dangerous time also in our nation's history, I think.
Well, and the reason why it's so dangerous is that the information it's out there. It's in every front. We're doing something here, and leadership is tough now. To pick and choose where we've got to put our resources, but we have to prioritize them. We can't be the world's peacekeepers. We can't do it.
Right.
I think us being strong has a pretty good is a factor in that. But boy, I'll tell you what, I can see it. If we get pulled in 3 or 4 different directions, it's gonna be tough.
Well, there's been a couple major studies done on that really support what you said, and I agree with it 100%. Every year, the Heritage Foundation, who's a well-known organization, does an in-depth study of our Department of Defense readiness, and they look at it soup to nuts. I mean, top to bottom, everything. Then they put an annual report out, and they rank each service on about 5 different levels, from very weak up to strong. For the last 2 years, the Heritage Foundation has rated our entire armed forces as weak. The only thing lower than that is very weak.
Well, we talked about that in one of our episodes. I think the Marine Corps kind of survived a little bit,
right.
A little bit higher than the Army and the other services, but that's because they have fought tooth and nail more than the others. They're not clean totally, but they maintain the discipline more, and the military is all about discipline. It's all about it.
How many fronts could we fight on right now, in your opinion?
Well, the way those are looked at is major regional contingencies, like maybe one against China and then one in Europe. There's been another study done, and I support it, that we would have a tough time doing one major regional contingency now. such as against China in the Indo-Pacific.
How does tech factor into, like drones and things like that, factor into manpower in today's warfare with the numbers being lower, but can that drone contingent make up lack of humans?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing in Ukraine right now in that fight regarding drones indicates it's changing the face of warfare. Drones are, and there's a lot of work being done within our own Department of Defense to field drones and put that capability out there on the ground where it needs to be, and also in the air. So to answer your question, it's going to be a big factor. Now, the impact on the number of personnel, I don't know that yet. But, there's discussion about, well, with what a drone can do on a tank right now, what's the future of tank warfare? That's being discussed. I mean, it should be.
It is, and I think it needs to be thought carefully. See, to answer your question, Brad, this is just me. Because of technology and the advanced capability, the day of parachuting behind a pallet load of AK-47s or some kind of sterile weapon and making a difference in another country, that's over. They now have the capability to influence the battlefield even a little bit. Look at the Houthis are a good example. What's Yemen? There's nothing there, and they're tying up assets. So you get a bunch of Yemens out there, and we got a problem because right now we want to make war sterile, and the more sterile that it becomes, and the more eyes on us, we have to treat it differently. We can't do what the enemy does. Or maybe we should. But, I think, I understand you have a short video that wraps up a lot of what you were talking about that you brought with us. Is that something you think we should see right now?
Oh, I think it's great. I just saw it a couple of days ago, and it's short, maybe about 3 minutes, as you said. And it's President Trump and Pete Hegseth talking about everything that they want to do within the Department of Defense to revitalize it, and as President Trump says, basically rebuild it and make it the best military in the world. So it's a HUA type recruiting
I
video.
liked it. I saw it. And I wish I could join, but they can't.
Right,
I might could pass that PT test still.
Yeah, exactly.
You can pass.
Let's give it a shot.
I can roll the tape. Here we go.
No more distractions. No more electric tanks. No more gender confusion. No more climate change worship. We are laser focused on our mission of warfighting.
We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. It's called peace through strength.
You look into the eyes of these young Americans who are giving up the best years of their life in a uniform to serve their nation. They are incredible.
Through our power and might, we will lead the world to peace. Our friends will respect us, our enemies will fear us, and the whole world will admire the unrivaled greatness of the United States military. We will replenish the pride of our armed forces, end the recruitment crisis.
We don't fight because we hate what's in front of us. We fight because we love what's behind us.
God bless you. God bless our armed forces. God bless our men and women serving overseas. And God bless the United States of America.
Well done.
Oh,
Can't
fantastic.
You wanted to join up.
Exactly. Get your blood flowing in the right direction, doesn't it?
Anyway, want to thank you for being with us. I'm sure we'll have you back. If there's anything we can do for you to help STARS, be sure and let us know, because we're behind you 100%. And the next program on that we're going to do on Department of Defense contracting, I think you'll find interesting too. If you got any ideas on that, let me know. We'll put it in the program. Sure. But Brad, do you have anything to add as we close this episode?
No, it's good to be with you, General, today. And, like always, visit our website, drewdixpodcast.com. Leave your comments. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We need those subscriptions. Tell your family and friends about the podcast if you like what you see. Order a couple of books. We're mercenary here, so we'll sell some quote books. We'll sell some Rescue River City books, but you can get those all in AmericanValuesCenter.org. So that's all I've got.
Well, thank you, Brad. And if to do otherwise is a disservice to this country, you gotta get into the fight. If you don't feel like you want to get out of your comfort zone, let us do it for you. So join us, and just remember, tolerance is a character flaw.
Just because no one knows doesn't mean it isn't true.